Hi John, and welcome to your swim therapy CD from your visit on the 18th of December 2012. This was another visit for you at swim therapy where we wanted to work on your front crawl, but we decided to, as it was an extended session today, look at your breaststroke as a warm-up session and a warm-up swim, and then go on to your front crawl to finish off. This was your first swim, and while it is a warm-up swim, it was a good opportunity for us to look at technically what you're doing with your breaststroke and try and give you some ideas to go away with and try and help with the efficiency of your breaststroke so you can swim for it a little bit longer. But as you've not really been coached on the breaststroke, and we did vaguely touch on it in the last session, give you a few more pointers on where to go with it now. During the last session I talked about making your arm pull and your leg kick smaller, and the leg kick is a very easy, obvious one to see here, but the knees are just coming far too wide. That wide kick is pointing towards a wedge kick. A wedge kick is defined by, at the start of the propulsive phase, the kick back, the heels still being inside the knee. And if we look here, you can see you've started your kick back here, and still we can't see the heels. Heels now come outside the knees here, and now we're starting to get into a better position. And we've just got such a wide W that it's caused your whole body, hips and lower back, to drop and almost into sort of a rut in this lower position. So we don't want that to happen, and that's all caused by the width that you're getting there, and that really wide kick. Another issue is this, what we would call goodness me, I've forgotten the name. There's a problem with the kick, where the fact that screw kick, sorry, that's the word, and the problem with the screw kick is that you've got one foot not turning out, the other foot is turning out, and what that causes is two totally different kicks going on at the same time. In a normal swimming race, that would be a definite disqualification, because they have to be simultaneous. So we need to make sure that they're doing the same thing, and I think by narrowing them, we'll start to get closer to that. With the arm pull, with breaststroke, we're always looking for a glide phase, and as you can see, there's your arm position in a glide phase, or close to. We need to stretch out a lot more than that. Legs are out. As the legs come back together, you can see there's no time in your swim where you're in a proper glide, proper streamline position. So we're totally neglecting the streamline and the position we want to get you into, which is the only position where you're not creating extra resistance. So we need to work on making this arm pull smaller, and getting that timing a little bit better so that the glide's in there. If we pause it there, we can see that you're turning the hands out reasonably well, but then going just with straight arms far too far round, and it's too big, and we shouldn't be pulling all the way back under the chest, because we can see there well under the chest, and if we look from a different camera angle, it's probably the best one actually, but we can just see the hands are far too far down and far too far back. So we need to work on getting you to lift the elbows and keep the elbows higher for longer, because while they are reasonably high there, early on we need to be bending these elbows much more. And I'm a bit wrong there. You do keep the elbows up reasonably well, but by keeping the arms so straight, you're not getting any propulsion or any positive propulsion going backwards, and while it's only a small amount on breaststroke, it's still something that's lacking in your stroke there. We had a few different goes, and while we found that you were still going a little bit further back than necessarily we want you to, we started to see here where you're getting the hang of pointing those elbows up, turning those hands out and pulling back slightly. You're not going quite as far back now. You're coming forward under the chin. I still think you could cut that movement down very slightly, and I'd like to see you stretching out a little bit more at the front of the stroke so that you get a proper streamline between each pull and kick, or at the end of each pull and kick. We then spent some time with the pool boy working on the kick, and this was your next swim once you've taken it away. I thought we're starting to look like a reasonably good kick. We worked on turning the toes out to the side, keeping the knees as narrow as possible, and you can see that you're really having to think about this and focus on it, which is where it's such a big change. What you did find was at first you were struggling to get the toes pointed out to the side, but as you've gone along here it's starting to work, and that power of the turn of the feet out, knees pointing towards each other, and I talked about putting X's on the front of your knees so that you can feel the comfort of pointing them towards each other rather than just being sort of left to your own devices on it. By pointing them towards each other, you should hopefully get into a better position and start to feel the positive backward force that you can create with your legs when you get the kick right. I'd still like to see you trying to get more of a streamline, but I think this leg kick and using pull buoys and working on pointing those toes out will really help you to start seeing the benefits as you go along. We then went on to your front crawl, which was obviously your biggest stroke, and it's the one you want to really start getting working again and get it working in the way that you used to when you were swimming a lot longer distances. It's not in bad shape, and I think you've done well since the last visit. And some of the things that we talked about, and in terms of above and aesthetically, it is looking very, very good. You get a nice high elbow position, you do a good pull through, and the entry position is not far away. It's all the underwater stuff that we need to be really focusing on. One that you can see here is the lack of stretch and reach out from that shoulder. We really need to be working on all of your strokes, getting much more reach, so that you're not having this divot and bend in the elbow that we get here. It's especially apparent whenever you breathe to the left. To the right. So whenever you breathe towards this side of the pool where my cursor is, it's always more apparent. But as we went a little bit slower and a little bit more controlled, you improved this and started to get the hang of keeping a high elbow and getting everything right. And there was some really good strokes here, but you need to work on keeping that elbow as close to the surface all the time so that you get into a more of a rhythm, and that's the bit that you haven't got at the moment. We talked about the legs a bit, and you can see that the legs just aren't doing as much as you'd like them to be. You really need to keep focused on them, but you did mention that you were focusing more on your upper body at this point in the swim. We tried you out with fulcrums, and while they didn't necessarily improve the elbow massively, I thought they were quite a useful one, and you felt that they were quite easy to use, and they helped you focus on getting a stretch out a little bit more than you had done previously. And they're not a bad little contraption that you can get from Swim Shop quite easily. That might just help you out and give you something different to think about when you're in your training sessions. We finished off just doing some breathing patterns on the full stroke anyway. And here we can see that where you're finding that we're starting to get the hang of keeping that elbow high. There are some that it still drops, but there's a lot more where you're keeping the elbow up and not letting it bend in that direction that we don't want it to go. So there we can see it. I know we've lost part of it there, but you definitely got it in a much better angle there. You can see it on camera 1 as well. So it's starting to come in, and the more you can practice that, the better really, because that drop of the elbow is making your life more difficult. We finished off looking at your torpedo kick, and this is what you've been working on, having watched the Swim Smooth website, which is a very good thing to do. And we can see here the right angle at your knee, where you're not quite getting the hang of using the upper leg enough, and too much bending of the knee. So it's all coming from a knee action, pushing the knee down and extending that bent knee position to gain propulsion. We need to make sure that you're keeping those legs straighter. And that short distance there, we can actually see is proof that it's not working quite as well as it should be, because we're only able to go for 7, 8 seconds. Here we finished off with focusing on a much straighter leg position, where you're trying to keep the whole top of the leg working, and already you can see how much faster you're going. You're at the front of the pool, you're not losing going back towards the back, and you're getting a lot more propulsion, and that was for 14 seconds. So that's a much longer kicking set, and all coming from keeping straighter legs and working on a smaller, faster kick speed, rather than extending those legs quite as far apart as we were earlier. Well done today, and I hope you enjoyed your visit. I think you're not far away with everything you're doing. I still like to see you working on that extension of the arms and trying to get as much power from each stroke as you can, and keeping those elbows high, poking the elbows up towards the surface, and trying to get as much out of it as you possibly can. Keep working on the kick, and we talked about the rotation drills as well today, so they'll be useful to you as well. Well done, and good luck with the Swim Smooth trial thing that you're doing in a couple of months' time, and I'll see you some point in the new year.